Hi, I'm Frank Macioce, and I'm here today with David Naidu, Council President. David, welcome.
Thank you, Frank.
And this is the first 2018 episode of Summit Council Forum, which is hosted by the Summit Council President, David. But this very first show, I'm the host, and David is the guest. And I will be interviewing David, and so you'll hear some of David's thoughts on a whole variety of different things. And then in future shows, he'll be interviewing whichever guests he invites to tell you about what's going on in Summit. So David,
Yes,
let's start on the personal side first.
Sure.
A little bit about you. You know, what led to your interest in politics? This is your third year of a 3-year term.
Correct. I ran in
council.
Yep, I got elected in 2016, and so going backwards in time, I've always been interested in politics. I got my undergraduate degree in political science, and then I went to graduate school where I met my wife, and we were both doing a PhD program in political science. But then we both fled from graduate school, and I went off to law school. But I've always retained an interest in politics. I've always retained an interest in community service. When we moved here from Hoboken to Summit, back now 13, 14 years ago, Summit was the only community that I'd ever gone to where I got a notification in the mail to apply and volunteer for a organization. So I went ahead and I applied for the Environmental Commission. And I didn't hear anything for 2 years.
Yeah, same thing happened to me.
And so I thought, they took it, they threw it in the garbage, it's done with. But no, lo and behold, I got a phone call 2 years later saying, hey, do you want to still be involved in the Environmental Commission? And that started me off on the road that has ended up sitting next to you here. Served for a few years on the Environmental Commission, then joined the Planning Board. And then decided, you know what, let me run for city council. A lot of important decisions go on, obviously, at the city council level. Our taxes, what the infrastructure of this town looks like, what the feel of the town looks like. They're all decided at city council. And it's something, this is my home. It's something to give back to my home. And frankly, one of the most enjoyable experiences I've ever had is actually running and meeting people. It was just great to go door to door. So.
Yeah. Serving on Common Council really is a way to participate more broadly, to have environmental is very interesting, planning board extremely interesting, but on council you feel as if you really have a broader impact, don't you?
Absolutely. I mean, there are issues that go on that you're never exposed to, really, frankly, in other boards of the city, which is not to say that they don't do great jobs. They obviously do, and it's incredible the talent of people who volunteer. One of the things council does is with the mayor, there's certain committees and boards that the mayor appoints. There's some that council does, and some that we do jointly. But when we go through in the late fall, through the appointments that are made, one goes through and sees the resumes of people in this town that are willing to give of their time. And it is just mind-boggling as far as how impressive. Exactly. Yeah. Really? You did that? Wow. Yeah. Oh, my God. Yeah. That is really cool to see. Yeah. So. But it is true. Council gets its overall perspective of different issues that go on and what people care about. And there are a variety of issues that people really care about and are passionate about.
So every council president who comes in has ideas, what he wants to do differently from the way things were done previously. Right. What are you going to do that's different from what we've done before?
Well, two of them, in a way, kind of bouncing off some of what we've already talked about, and that is getting to know and understand what people's issues are. So first, we're doing this year what's called Council Goes on the Road. I don't believe this ever been tried before, and so we're going to try it and see how this goes. But one of the things that that I've experienced, obviously, when you're going door to door, is that you hear similar concerns from different neighborhoods, and you want to make sure that people get heard. Council right now provides that if you come at the meeting, early in the process in the meeting, there's an opportunity for public comment. But that requires people to be available to come to a council meeting and so forth. And what we decided is we're going to go out and meet people in the community itself. And so council goes on the road. We're going to have listening sessions. We're going to go out there and listen to what people's concerns are in particular neighborhoods. The first of which we will be hosting and holding at Wallace Chapel on March 27th. March 27th at 7 p.m. We hope it'll be a great turnout. We encourage folks to come out there from that neighborhood or any other neighborhood. And we're there exclusively, really, just to listen to a variety of concerns, hopefully, that people have. And we will take those, what we hear, in order to help formulate policy that will address those things.
Okay.
The other initiative that we've launched this year is, and I again don't think that this was previously done as a formalized process, is to have the different boards and commissions come in front of council. So just stepping back so people understand, we obviously have boards and commissions on a variety of issues, whether it's the Environmental Commission, the Shade Tree Commission, recycling, and we can go through a litany of different organizations and boards that have. These are all volunteers that are involved in that. They help, these different boards and commissions help to formulate the ultimate policy that council enacts. They look at the underlying issues. They do the legwork, the research. Council members cannot do the work that these folks do. They do all the hard work behind the scenes. We want to acknowledge them by having them come to the board so this way they get recognition from council for it. But in addition, we want all of council, not just their individual liaison member, but really all of council to hear what it is that they're concerned about and what they would like us to move forward with. And so I think this year we had, last night was the first of these boards coming, and that was the Environmental Commission, and they gave a presentation about what the Environmental Commission is all about, as well as what they're working on this year and what they would like us to be working on this year.
Interesting, interesting. And it'll probably draw in comments from members of the public who are listening or watching on Hometown TV to what these boards do, and you'll probably hear more from them as well as a result. So
that's our hope. Our hope is that people get to know more about these boards. It also helps when people want to volunteer, so they know more about what it is the board that they're going to volunteer and be involved in. Yeah. And then people can say, oh, look, I have that skill set. I do that in my professional life, or that is my particular interest. And look, they have a board or a commission that I can do something with and that I can add value to it.
So this morning I was reading TAP, as I do, and I get up and there's a couple of emails from TAP. And one of the things that was there this morning was Broad Street West redevelopment. And I know there was a lot of talk about that during the election process. I honestly wasn't fully tuned into it. Well, what's wrong with the western end of Broad Street that needs to be fixed?
There's nothing necessarily wrong with western end of Broad Street that needs to be fixed. What we're looking at is increasing ratables and increasing, well, let me take a couple of steps back. So let's talk about what is Broad Street West. Broad Street West, when we're talking about it, we're talking about the area between Maple and Morris Avenue. And so that has where the fire station is located, a couple of municipal lots. It also includes right now areas that are already developed, the YMCA, the post office, the library. First of all, it doesn't mean that these institutions are going anywhere. Nothing is going to necessarily happen to it. It's a process that's been evolving, and this has been through prior councils, the previous councils that I've sat on, and our council, as well as the planning board. The process that we are involved in is to see whether or not this area can be redeveloped through a private developer. It's a non-condemnation process. That means that any private entity that currently owns property within those areas and does not want to participate in a redevelopment process, as far as to a developer and say, sell it, they can say, no, thank you, we're out of here, we don't want to do it. But I think for most property owners, it's at least good to hear what their options are and to be around sitting at the table listening to what's going on. So what are we trying to do there? What we're trying to do, as I said, the word ratables. Why is ratables important? One of the biggest concerns that people have in this town is their taxes, rightfully so. Taxes keep on seeming like going up. Hopefully, we can try to do something about it. But specifically now, especially with the removal of the SALT deduction, the state and local tax deduction,
Right.
Because of the changes in the federal law, it puts a greater onus on making sure that at the local government level, we not only ensure that we reduce taxes as much as possible to be commensurate with the services provided, but that we try to expand the pie. And that's what Broad Street redevelopment is the concept for. It is, can we look at broadening the pie by increasing the ratables? So what is increasing ratables? That means construction of either new residences or commercial enterprises or a combination thereof. My personal feeling is it would be best served by a combination thereof. A combination thereof, what does that mean? In my personal feeling, again, we have a thriving and a good downtown. The intent is not to make a competing downtown. We want to do that kind of development that will help the downtown. So among the things that we're missing right now in our downtown, as we all know, is some entertainment options. It would be good, if possible, to get some entertainment in a Broad Street redevelopment. That will help bring in people. It will give a reason for people to come into town and then go across the street, to walk across that bridge, and then go to all the restaurants, the shops that are there in the downtown. Our feeling is, or at least those of us who have been talking about this for a while, is that this could be a very good win-win-win situation. It would be a win for the town because we would get more ratables and taxes in, thereby broadening the pie, lessening each individual tax owner's tax burden. It would be a win for the downtown because it would bring more people into the downtown, and it would be a win for our overall how our town feels because we have more options, things that are missing now from our downtown that would be now in the downtown area.
Now, would this involve, I understood what you said about private enterprise. Would it involve any government spending in order to make this happen?
The extent of government spending would be through the planning process. We would not be involved in the development of any private enterprises. It would not be subsidization of the or private enterprise. I know that in some communities there is, you give tax subsidies and so forth to get people to come in. Some it doesn't need it. I mean, we should also recognize our baseline. We're not the type of town that desperately needs somebody to come in or some group of people to come in to help rescue us. That's not us. And so we are in a very advantageous position because we can say, okay, we like this idea or we don't like this idea. We could live with where we are right now with the Broad Street redevelopment, with doing no Broad Street redevelopment. But I think for the reasons I outlined, that would be of some benefit. Obviously, when you look at the area, you say to yourself, well, there's a fire station there, and you would have to move the fire station. The fire station is more than 100 years old right now, and as you know, has been added on over and over.
Yeah.
Antiquated. It requires specialized fire trucks because we can't fit them into the fire station bays as constructed. We would need to move the fire station from the present location. So as far as is there a financial hit from a municipal side, the only one that one would look at is a fire station, but that, in my estimation, is one that you would have to address at some point in time in either scenario, whether it is through redevelopment or not.
So the municipality's primary role would be, as you said, planning, which probably means some rezoning in order to stimulate what it is you're talking about, right?
Well, we are going through a planning process right now, and in fact, we're going to have a meeting on March 7th at 7 p.m. at Memorial Chapel for St. Teresa's, where the public is invited to come and give their thoughts. As I explained to you what it is, what I would like to see, we want to hear from the public what they would like to see. One of the things that happened in the last few years was the master plan process. And during the master plan process, the public came out and specifically said, look, we want to see redevelopment in the Broad Street area. These are the types of things we'd like to see occur in our town as far as activities and businesses. And so part of what we're doing right now is fulfilling what the public's desire was through the master plan process. But that was, let's say, 40,000 foot overview. We're trying to bring this now down to, say, 10,000, where we are talking about, okay, now we have a specific area. What is it specifically that you guys would like to see doing that? Then, if we still move forward with this, we're of course going to be talking to developers, and they will tell us what they think is feasible for them to be able to do and still have a commercially viable entity. And so we will get, as we get further down, each time we get further down that rung of ladders, the public will have an opportunity to comment and give us advice as to whether or not they think the direction is right or wrong.
Sounds like a big undertaking. It's interesting. We could talk about this for an hour.
We could talk about this. Is, because I serve, which may sound crazy, I still serve on the planning board. And so I hear it both from the council side and I hear it from the planning board side. This is a large undertaking. I am not underestimating the consequences for the town, but it is one that hopefully people will understand, the intent is certainly to make it a better town. We're trying to position ourselves in a way that we have a diversified economy in this town. So this way, as changes in the economy occur, we are ready to challenge it. I'll give you one statistic, Frank. 82% of the taxes are paid by residences. Okay? If there are ways that we can reduce that tax burden on residences and shift it to commercial enterprises or other enterprises, that will make a concrete difference to everybody's pocketbook.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. So, tell me about what's going on. If I'm not mistaken, you've shifted from Uber to Lyft. Have I got that right?
Yes.
What's going on?
We shifted last year from Uber to Lyft, in part after seeing the results of how it worked out with Uber, and Lyft offered a better, I guess the word for it is a better product, which is that they allowed for folks to make reservations, which was something that Uber had not. Mm-hmm. The reason we have been doing this effort, whether through Uber or Lyft, is one of the other big issues, besides taxes, is parking, right? And this is something that councils seems like for eons.
We had it fixed years ago.
I know. What the heck? Why did you leave us with this mess? I don't know. So what we're trying to do is trying to figure out alternative means of addressing parking that will prevent us from having to do a publicly financed garage. Okay? And a publicly financed garage is something between $10 and $15 million that would cost. That's a big number. It's a big number, especially now, because one doesn't know what's happening with the automotive industry and what the future is about the usage of cars. And so we don't want to have a $10 to $15 million liability that we have to pay off over 30 years when people have changed their driving habits. The other issue is, well, where do you put it, and what impact does that have on the neighborhoods and so forth? Part of the Broad Street redevelopment, just stepping back, one of the things that will be part of the component will have to be, of course, making up for those spaces. And so, again, the intent is, as I just made the distinction, publicly financed parking versus potentially privately financed parking. And that's something that would need to be hashed out and discussed through any kind of redevelopment project. Okay.
It was originally 100 when it was Uber. Is it still 100 with Lyft? Yes,
I think so. And I actually think we've never gotten to that number of people to use it. And part of that is, we didn't know whether it was because people couldn't make reservations in advance and so forth. And so we're trying it out to try to get as much usage of our parking resources that currently exist, because for every one person that takes it, we open up a parking space. But personally, I think it's a good idea. We're going to evaluate it. We said last year we would evaluate it again this year, and we're open to trying out different things. And if Lyft works, if Uber works, if something else works, I know there are plenty of people who have talked to me and said, David, what about a jitney? And I have been always open to the concept of looking into a jitney, and whether it's a privately financed jitney or some kind of carpooling. You have in the city with Lyft and Uber, you have carpools in the sense you have multiple people being picked up rather than an individual. Whatever it takes that people are going to be responsive to, that helps to reduce parking demand and thereby reduce the need for building a parking structure, I'm all open to hearing for it.
Okay. Let's talk about Hometown Heroes, which I know is something that you're very interested in.
Absolutely.
Tell the folks what that's all about.
Sure. So Hometown Heroes is this great project, I think, that we launched this year through the help of a friend of mine who reached out to me about it, Mike Arline, a resident here in town. I know he reached out to you as well, and you've been very helpful in this, Frank, so thank you. The American Legion's also involved. So let's just take a step back. What is Hometown Heroes? Hometown Heroes is honoring those folks who have served our country in the armed forces. And it doesn't matter what period of time, whether it's back to World War I, World War II, the Vietnam War, Korea War, or the recent conflicts in the Gulf and Afghanistan. We want people to, family members, if the person is deceased, unfortunately, if they want to have a banner being placed with the face of the person, with their dates of service and which branch they served, we want to honor them. The banners will go up just before Memorial Day and will remain there till 4th of July, a little bit after 4th of July. On DeForest? We're hoping for DeForest, otherwise it'll be on Broad Street, but I think it's a question right now of raising the funds to see where it will be able to be placed. I think my first preference would be to put it on DeForest, if it can be done there.
Now, you don't have to be a war hero to...
You do not have to. The concept, sometimes people think, well, I served, I wasn't necessarily quote-unquote a hero. But the idea of willing to sacrifice yourself for your country is in of itself heroic. And it is something I think that we have to recognize that right now a very, very, very small percentage of people actually serve in our armed forces. And they help to protect everyone's freedom. We are all dependent upon them. And therefore, anybody who does that work, we should recognize, because we would not be able to enjoy what we do without their service. And that's why it's called Hometown Heroes. They're people who have lived in our communities, and they did not necessarily have to get the Medal of Honor. It is the fact that they were willing to sacrifice themselves for it.
It's a great undertaking. I'm glad that you and Michael and others, our American Legion and so on, are doing it. And we look forward to Memorial Day when the banners will
I cannot wait. I think
Yeah.
this is
Yeah.
and it was, I want to commend all of council. It was unanimously supported by everyone there. It was enthusiastically supported, and it was, we went out the gate on the first real council meeting in January,
Yep.
and by the second council meeting, real council meeting, it was done. So it was very quickly gone through, but it had to be in order for it to be done for this year.
Okay. Let me switch to maybe one of the driest but most important subjects. You alluded to it just a little while ago, and that's taxes. When I was on council, which wasn't too awful long ago, 2004, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9, roughly half our taxes went to schools, which is still true.
Yes.
And about the other half was 50-50 between the county and the municipality. And successive councils have done a very good job of holding the lid on taxes, oftentimes to less than 1%. I think there was once it was even a decrease. And as a result, unfortunately, the county hasn't done that. So as a result now, 29% goes to the county and only 21% to the municipality. They've split apart.
Yes.
Will you be able to hold the lid on local spending the way prior councils have, the recent prior councils?
I intend to, certainly. my track record over the past 2 years has been that I have opposed at times by myself certain spending measures. My mantra has been, needs versus wants. We have to focus on what our needs are. There's some things that are nice to have, but if we can't afford them, we can't afford them. And I recognize the fact that people go out every single day, work very hard for their money. They don't want to come back and have to give it away to spend on projects that they don't think are necessary. My expectation is that you will see that we will, on the city level, will have definitely held the line on what we expect from our residents.
Okay, that's very good to hear. The other side of that coin is, what can you do with the county? I know that's the tough.
No, I know that's tough. We have, this is always the same kind of similar answer, I think. We show by example what can be done, and we will again show by example what can be done at municipal government when it is done properly. I think our residents get a really good set of services from the city of Summit, but they don't have to pay an arm and a leg for it. But obviously, as you point out, the county share has increased, and really the bulk of it is on the school side. But combined, the city is a fraction of it. But people don't look at it necessarily that way, and I don't look at it that way. When I get a tax bill, I go, "That's my tax bill," and that's
right.
That's high. I don't want to pay that much in taxes.
Right.
So what we can do with the county is twofold. One, I'm hoping this year actually the county will try to stay below the 2% cap. It should. There's a reason for it. The reason why there's a cap is because it tells people, look, don't keep on just spending money. This is not just a piggy bank that you can go to. And I'm hoping that the county will do something like that and abide by the 2% cap. But secondly, the idea is to try to get us back as much money back to Summit as possible. Whether it's through the state or through the county, and hopefully we will be able to also be successful at that. There are some things that are going on right now. I know endeavors to try to get some monies back, and so let's see if it all pans out, but there you go.
Okay, well, I hope you do.
That's our intent.
Okay, well, we could talk, for another half hour, and there's so many interesting subjects and so many things going on in Summit right now. But unfortunately, we are coming to a close.
Oh, there you go.
So,
that's quick.
So it is. That's I told you. So thank you very much for doing this, and I look forward to watching future episodes from my living room.
Great. Thank you so much, Frank. Appreciate it.
Thanks, David.